Welcome to the Primetime One Fishing Podcast. I'm your host, Captain Z. The Primetime One Fishing Podcast, a place for talking shop and talking shit, busting balls, all in the name of good-natured fun and camaraderie while we talk about some fishing. Episode 2 of the 2025 season. I've got 2 more characters with me here today. What a show we're going to have in store for you. Let me start by introducing our first guest. This is a man who once caught a striper so big that we had to have him and the fish tested for steroids. He is in the elite company of only 2 people in the world, the other being Gordon Gecko, who can make wearing suspenders look cool. Give this guy a roll of duct tape and a handful of zip ties and he'll give you something out of it. Hence the very aptly name of his boat, The Spare Parts. Please welcome today's first guest, the 2023 winner of the Quint Cup, George Gagnon. George, good to have you with us today.
Yeah.
How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm good.
Yeah, glad to finally have you on the podcast.
Yeah.
Going to have a good show here today, and we got another character alongside of you over here. And with that being said, let me introduce our next guest. This guy is so cheap that he deliberately pisses people off in the hopes that they'll throw 3-ounce lead weights at his boat so that he doesn't have to buy his own. He also keeps and reuses every single leader and hook that fouls on his lobster gear. As a fisherman, this guy is the embodiment of it's better to be lucky than it is to be good. And as the winner of the 2022 Quint Cup, he reaffirmed that the best man does not always win. Please welcome our next guest, Mike Quigley, a.k.a. the Quig.
Anthony, you're giving away all my secrets.
Well, Mike, there's a lot of tradecraft out there that you've sort of developed over the years, and, be it stupidly or otherwise, it seems to work for you. But anyway, the name of your boat, the Dread Pirate Quigley, I think you kind of embody the pirate's nature out there. Tell us a little bit about what inspired the name of the boat, if there's any backstory to that. Let's start there with you today.
Yeah, well, it's actually from the movie, the novel, The Princess Bride. There was a pirate called the Dread Pirate Roberts.
Oh, okay.
And so I just took that and applied my last name to it, and we go.
I really had no idea that The Princess Bride inspired the name of a boat, much less the name of yours, but then again, not surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
So, George, let's shift it over back to you. So you're the kind of ranking guy here today, the senior member on our podcast. Tell us where it all began. Tell us how it all started for you out there in the realm of fishing. How did you get into this fraternity of insanity?
This goes back to a time where I could barely remember. My father, my grandparents, my uncle, all loved fishing, flounder fishing. We'd go out of Kernwood over in Salem in the rowboat, fish with drop lines for flounder, and then slowly worked our way up to powered boats so we could do some haddock and cod fishing, and then continued up a little bit more to do tuna fishing. So it's been in my blood from day one.
So noticing a little bit of a theme over here. So last episode, Jay referenced doing some drop lining, and then in episodes last year, we had Bobby talk about drop lining.
Yep.
So yeah, that's definitely the mark of, as I call them, the old guard types over there. That they started off with those with the relics, with the old
Yep.
drop lines over there.
Yep.
Can you explain to some of the people out in the audience who may not know the history of the finer points over there? What exactly is a drop line?
Basically, it's you take the line, which is probably, you could call it like 200-pound test braided line, and you have it on a wooden spool, so that now you just put your rig on the end. Usually, if you're flounder fishing, it'd be a spreader with a hook on each end, and you just pay it off that wooden spool down and fish, bop it up and down, and
So no rod,
No rod.
no reel.
No.
You just wrap it around
Yep.
a piece of wood.
Yep.
Yep.
And the line would be, when you'd bring it in, be down between your feet.
It makes me think of those, like that old movie there, Captain's Courageous. The guys pulling in those hand
Yep.
lines over there, except it's
Yep.
just you wrapping it around a little piece of wood.
Exactly. We did that for many years. And right off the Point of Pines here, one day, 4 of us, actually 2 of us, had the luck of catching over 300 pounds of filleted flounder, 120 pounds of filleted flounder.
So we're talking fillets.
Fillets.
The fillets were 120
Fillets.
pounds, okay? So not even
And
counting the carcasses.
We were using, my cousin and I are off the back of our friend's 18-foot bow rider, both using drop hand lines, 2 of them each. And we just had 3 hours of a blitz. And, yeah, it was so much easy. Put it in, pull it up, pull it.
Man, those were the days, well before my time. But, yeah, I mean, that's when this river was just littered with flounder.
Right.
And we talked about that in the last episode, too. People used to load buckets, even trash barrels of them back in the day.
Yep, absolutely.
So I definitely think a little bit of overfishing happens, not through anyone's intention or even realizing was going to be the thing. But I think we're starting to see that build back little by little. We still got a ways to go.
A long ways
to go before we get there. But
between overfishing and climate change, it's changed the whole aspect of fishing. You don't just come out and drop a line and start catching fish. Now you have to hunt them down.
You do, you absolutely have. You have to hunt them down, and I think certainly striped bass, you see that too. You see that very much. That's the thing. How many times do you go to a spot and you start there? Hey, they were here yesterday. Yeah, okay, they were here yesterday. Where did they go from here? That's why the spirit of real time information is definitely a good thing to have out there.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you're the beneficiary of that information. Sometimes you're the giver of that information out there. Mike, your fishing career started a little bit differently. Tell us where you get started in the game.
Yeah, I was born in Pennsylvania, and caught my first fish, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years old, and knew right away that this was for me. So as a kid, I grew up, lake fishing for bluegill and catfish and stuff like that. Graduated to rubber worms for bass, probably in my teens.
Okay.
When I was 18, I got my first fly rod. Got it as a Christmas present, and that was a big shift. I started fly fishing for trout. Started, going destination fishing, where I would go to, certain streams and in different parts of the state, chasing after trout and smallmouth bass too. Good smallmouth bass fishing in Pennsylvania. Moved to the Boston area in the early 90s. And at that time, the striper population had finally rebounded after decades of being down, and there were small bass everywhere. And the striped bass is a fantastic fly rod fish because they come in very close. You can reach them with a cast. They take a fly readily, especially the smaller fish. Bigger fish are tougher because they're down farther. But so I started. So that started a decade of surf fishing for stripers here on the Cape, Newburyport, really any place I could go. Started making some trips to the tropics for tarpon and snook, bonefish. So that was it. I was mostly light tackle spinning and fly fishing for stripers through probably through about 2015 when I got my first decent sized boat, and started seeing guys like George here catching stripers, using techniques that were foreign to me, and catching stripers of a size that you just don't get on the fly rod that often. No. Because they're not high enough in the water column for that. So I wanted to learn something new, so I've been learning from these guys. So I would say the past 7-8 years, my focus has been on mostly live lining for stripers, trying to catch big fish and bluefish, and that's where we are today.
Yeah, and when you really stop and think about it, there's a lot of people out there, myself among them, that have sort of learned from the old vets over here that have passed down the trade craft from one generation to the next. As a little kid, I started fishing here right off of the docks outside when I was 13 years old. That's in 1995. And, I remember guys like Zizzer, and I remember guys like Bobby back in those days. They were still catching a lot of fish, those guys. Mm-hmm. And they give you information. Eventually you stop fishing with them. They start trusting you with more information. They tell you a little bit more of the secrets and the different things. I think I've talked about it before. I remember Zizza has talked about, code names. He used to talk about places. I'd ask him, hey, where'd you catch this one? I get this one at the Holy Land or whatever it was. And, that's one of those things. I'm like, at the Holy Land? I'm looking at chart supplements. I'm like, where is this place? In Israel? Like, I don't see it, but it was a nickname. And I didn't even know that was a thing, that guys used to have nicknames for spots, that's and then they start showing you these spots over here. And, we've renamed a couple of them, over the different years. So now we have kind of our own set of nicknames for spots, different things out there. So I just think that's kind of just a cool aspect of the tradition that gets passed down.
One of the great things about fishing is there's so many different ways to go about it, and And each species, each way of fishing has its own tricks and its own challenges. Right now it's probably harder to catch flounder in Metro Boston than it is to catch striper. So you want a real challenge?
Yep.
Go flounder fishing and try to bring home dinner. We catch fish like this, but so a bluegill might seem like a simple thing to catch, but if you decide you want to catch a trophy bluegill, go try it. Not that easy. So it's one of the things that keeps me coming back.
And I think you're right about that. It's way harder to catch flounder out there. I do think the flounder fishery is inching its way back. It is a long way to go. The cod fishery will recover before the flounder fishery. Okay, I'm very confident in that. But yeah, there's some flounder that are out there now. But you're right. It's very hard to catch those fish, and you have a relatively small window of the season. That those fish are actually out there. George, not that this really has anything to do with anything. I just think it's just kind of a cool little clip here of you. And I don't know if you remember this particular day last season. And from the fog, he emerged.
Oh,
you remember that last season?
I remember that foggy day.
That was pretty insane. Mike, I think you might have been out there that day too. Were you out that day?
Oh my God, I was out in some serious fog.
It was one. There were a couple days out there, and a few of them were commercial days. And I think this was one of them, George. This was on a commercial day.
That fog makes that boat look big.
It does.
Impressive.
But there's a couple things I want to talk about here that you can almost see on this boat right now, where you have that sort of makeshift green stick, that you put on there. We'll talk about that in a quick second. But no, I think that clip was pretty cool. And that fog right there, you could see it was pretty foggy. That was actually during a good part of the day. Yeah. That was when things actually opened up. We were down to, at one point, probably 200 feet of visibility. And I remember I saw you going out, and I knew you weren't. I could hear you. Because it was one of those things where acoustically you can hear a pin drop out there. And I'm pinging you on the radar, and I'm saying to you, George, I think that's you. Turn to your right a little bit, and okay, yeah, that's you. That's how I knew it was you. And then I knew you were up in front of us, I think somewhere else. But that was one of those having to just look to see where everybody was on the radar. Yeah. I think that was the day that I almost got run over by one of the Pogie boats out there too.
Oh yeah, they were big that day.
Yeah, they were out there in force that day. But if I remember, that was a pretty good commercial day. Did you get anything that day? I can't remember. I think I might have had one that day. I can't ever remember myself. But I just thought the clip there was pretty cool. But there were a few of those foggy days out there this year. Yeah, that always also adds another dimension to it, to say the least about it. But, Mike, you talked about this a second ago, and George, again, the name of your boat, the spare parts. You are kind of that MacGyver type guy that, like I said, give this guy some zip ties and some duct tape. He'll make something with it for you. So you took an old surf rod and you fashioned this thing to kind of be a green stick or an outrigger. Tell us a little bit about what gave you and Kevin. You and Kevin came up with this kind of this wacky idea to make a green stick or an outrigger interchangeable.
It goes back where, when we're out trolling, and trying to keep the lines away from each other. I'm saying, geez, the boats like Bobby Lostbow, got the nice outriggers. I says, we got this little boat here. Let's do something ourselves, So I had my son left an old surf rod in my house, and I goes, well, I took the bottom half, and I goes, I got the angled one of the rod holders out. And we put it in to get the line out, and it was a little awkward, but it worked.
You guys caught some fish with this thing. And I remember seeing that thing out there one day. I drove by you, and I'm just I'm like, what the fuck is this? Then I asked him, I'm like, it actually makes sense. It's actually a pretty good idea. Yeah. And I think it just totally fits the persona of your boat, the spare parts. Yeah, you come up with some cool little gadgets and ideas up there.
And we did the same with a downrigger.
Oh, would you? I didn't even know about the downrigger. Yeah, so tell us all about this.
Very similar. We, I think I used that same surf casting rod, the bottom half, and made a downrigger out of it. Got the weight and the clips and everything, and that worked out pretty good. Because on my boat I don't have the hard top, so it's hard to have an outrigger or anything. And that worked pretty good because when trolling with my boat, it's a little fast, so it's hard to get the lures down.
You throw the bucket out at all?
No.
Try the bucket. I'm telling you. I've run into that problem on some other boats that I fished on before. Just take that 5-gallon bucket, toss it over the side, and drag it around. It'll work.
Yeah, my favorite way to fish is to drift fish.
That's how I like to fish it myself.
That's my favorite.
But you know, one of the things where I started to really evolve over the years, I still really enjoy that drift fishing, but it was Bobby Lostbow that said, hey, get out there and just get moving around, cover ground, and try to start finding these fish. You know, so I do like doing both, but I will admit that I've become more into trolling in years past.
Well, years ago, drift fishing was easy because the fish were abundant. Now, like we said before, you need to hunt them down. So you go out and you can troll around, and when you find them, then you can stop and you can drift.
And then what I find one of the harder parts, and again, we talked about this in the last episode, is that sometimes you'll find them, but they're just not feeding. But it's also trying to stay on them. Right? That's the other thing, too, is because we can mark them when they're right underneath the boat. We don't know their direction of movement.
Exactly.
Yeah, how many times, and Mike, I think we've even talked about this before, you're motoring along, you're trolling, and you just mark a huge school of fish, and you're waiting for that line to go off, and then nothing happens. Why? Because, as you come right over this school of fish, you're going this way, and right when these fish are under the transducer, they're going this way. So by the time your lines pull through that area, they've already moved through. And then you see that thing play out an awful lot, too. All the time. You know, so I mean, sometimes it can be, very disappointing when you see that machine light up, and then other times too, it actually does pay dividends for you. But yeah, it's finding them, but it's also staying with them, I think, is another aspect of it. Mike, real quickly, as I like to say a lot, in July, it's good to know a lobster guy.
Yep.
So you're pretty diversified in the fishery these days. It's not just stripers and bluefish, and you said you're trying to do sharks and tuna even, possibly this season. But you've been lobstering for a little while, so tell us a little bit about lobstering, what you've been doing with that, how you get into lobstering.
I really love lobstering. It's it's almost like being an old-time prospector. But, fishing is too, but lobstering especially. Part of what I like about lobstering is, first off, in the course of a day, you try to, you're going to have some slow fishing days. But if you have different things to keep yourself interested, the stripers aren't biting, let's go check the lobster traps and see what's going on over there. I also kind of get a kick out of the cycle out there. So, you go out and you troll for mackerel. You take the mackerel that you catch and you go try to find stripers. You're done striper fishing, you take the mackerel that are left over and you go check your lobster traps and you bait them. So it's a lot of fun. I work at it pretty hard. I would say I took about 200 keepers last year.
Wow. And that's just on 10 pots?
6 pots.
6, okay,
6
so even
pots.
less.
So, lobsters, it just like fish, really. The more time you put out there, you're going to have better results. So I do that. I try to check my traps every 2 to 3 days at least. And it's a little bit like Christmas. Every time you pull those traps up, you never know what you're going to find in them.
You find some weird stuff in there.
I found stripers. You get a lot of grubbies, which are these big sculpin. You get flounder.
I've got flounder.
What else do you get? You get pipefish. You get weird little creatures that you're not sure what they are exactly. So you find all kinds of things.
Yeah. How long have you been doing that now?
Oh, geez, probably like maybe about 8 years.
Okay, so you've been at it less than a lifetime, more than a hot minute, to say the least about it.
Yes, last year was the first time I kind of split my traps up, and I put some in one place,
right,
and some in another. Prior to that, I used to keep them all in one area.
It's a lot easier to manage.
Easier to manage in one place, but what I figured was I would by putting pots in one place and pots in another place, I would work the traps better because I'd work them on a rotation. So Group A would get
pulled today, Group B tomorrow.
Baited on a Monday and checked on a Wednesday, and Group B would get baited on a Tuesday and checked on a Thursday, and you just keep going around like that. So you've always got some traps that have some fresh bait in them.
Yeah, so it's been your thing, you and the other Mikey, been doing pretty good. You guys are kind of like the resident lobster fishermen down here.
The lobstering the past few years has been phenomenal. Last year was the best year I ever had. I pulled up one trap one day, had 15 lobsters in it. 15 keepers.
15 keepers, no less.
15 keepers,
Yeah.
including 3 of them were like 5 pounds.
One of the things I'm seeing with lobstering too, a lot of females out there, a lot of egg-bearing ones too. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing to see a lot of egg-bearing females and a lot of denosed ones too, even that don't have the eggs on them. That's one of the things I'm seeing when I started running a couple of traps last year.
I did not get so many females last
Really?
year, but it kind of comes and goes in
Now,
spurts.
it might be where we're fishing. I think the area where I was fishing, just outside of the harbor in Nahant, maybe that's just a spawning ground. Maybe that's where all the females were. I was getting a lot of females. Don't get me wrong, a lot of males in there too, but there were a lot of females out there, especially a lot of eggers too.
It's fun to share with my friends. I give a lot of them away, and
He does.
the girls like it too.
And they're delicious.
They are. There's nothing like a lobster that came out of the water that morning. When you get one that's been in a tank for a couple of days, all right, not so bad. But one that was swimming that morning, man, there's nothing like it.
And that's actually true. The meat will get a little bit more acidic as they're stored in a tank, and they're not eating and they're not flushing their systems as well. It doesn't taste bad, but it definitely doesn't taste as sweet.
I
as a
agree.
fresh caught
Sweeter,
lobster.
it's sweeter, and there's definitely a difference.
Yeah.
For sure. George, let's shift it over to you here. So you brought in some interesting photos over here. So let's go ahead and kind of go through a couple of these things right here. And this is something I just like to do with a lot of different people, is just talk about, hey, take me through the old Rolodex of photos here. George, let's start off with this one. This looks like it was taken a little while ago. No suspenders on this one.
Not on this one.
Not on this one.
That was probably about 10 years ago.
That was 10 years ago. Wow. All right.
Yeah. That was a 40. That might have been my 50-inch striper.
No way. Wow. Okay. So
There was another. We got another one there too. That was definitely a high 40s. I didn't weigh it because back then
didn't have the scale.
didn't have the scale.
Which you've kind of become the scale master now. You're the guy. So, the Striper Bowl, which Mikey and George are active participants in. George is the master of scales. He calibrates the scales every season. We had a scale controversy a little ways back, which was pretty interesting. And now the new rule is everyone gets their scale checked at the beginning of the season, and George is the one who's in charge of that.
Yeah.
So George, next photo here, moving right along.
Well,
that looks like a little bit bigger than 50 inches.
That was back in 1970. My father, my uncle, and I were out tuna fishing, and there was probably a couple other guys on my uncle's boat. And that was a 627-pound tuna.
Wow, beautiful fish.
Look at that thing.
And my mother came up, because this was when we were over in Beverly. Got the pictures and stuff, but back then every time we'd go out, we'd catch a nice big tuna.
Do you remember how you got that? Were you live lining? Were you harpooning?
No, we were sitting in the fighting chair.
No, you guys got that one in the chair.
Rod
Wow.
and reel.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. And just back down on it. That when you fish that way, a fish like that would probably take 2 to 3 hours to bring in.
Easily.
Yeah.
I would think that's probably on the low side to say that it would take 2 to 3 hours.
Oh.
That's
That's going back to when I was a teenager, ice fishing.
okay.
Up on Chabaco Lake.
So this is a young George, and again, no suspenders here in the early days, folks. Okay.
No. And that's like a 27-inch pickerel. Came up through the ice.
Cool.
Yeah. That was my father, myself, my uncle, my cousin Bobby. Every weekend, once the ice was thick enough, we were ice fishing.
I've only done ice fishing once. Did it for smelts, and it was a lot of fun. It's different for sure.
We fish for smelts up in Maine all the time, and that's the Madge. That's my uncle's boat. I think my grandfather probably took that picture from. He was on his friend's boat, but that's got my uncle, my father, myself. If you notice, I probably don't have too much hair because I was just out of the basic training.
What branch were you in?
Army.
Okay. This looks a little more recent than that. You have some hair in this picture, I see.
Yeah, that was taken out on Lake Ontario up in New York.
Right.
We went a weekend of salmon fishing on the lake. We chartered a boat. There was about 5 of us. And that day, that's the only fish we caught was a big trout.
All right. Better than getting shut out. But
Yep.
it looks like if you're going to catch something, that's not a fish that would disappoint right there.
And that's my father and probably one of his sisters out on the rowboat out of the Kernwood over in Salem. And if you look closely, he's holding the drop line.
Yeah, you can see it. Yeah, you can see it in there.
That's why I put that in there, you know.
So what were they probably fishing for?
Flounder.
There? Flounder?
Guarantee it flounder. Yeah. That was a hot spot back then.
And again, it takes me back to Captain's Courageous. It looks like a shot from Manuel's dory right there.
Yep.
You know, fishing for halibut up on the Grand Banks. So not as many pictures, but Mike, let's start with this one right here. So back when you're fishing down south.
Yeah. So this was in the Yucatan.
Ah, all right.
At a place called Boca Pila, which was a big saltwater estuary, kind of like here, although on a much larger scale, that passed out through a narrow little inlet that you could almost walk across. And sitting on the ocean side of that inlet, when the water came out, boy, there were some enormous barracuda. And that was one I was probably afraid to pick it up because I'd never seen so many teeth. But I think that was 48 inches, that barracuda.
That was a 48-inch barracuda?
Yes.
Wow. I don't blame you for being a little bit hesitant at trying to pick something like that up. That thing will do some damage to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a lot of times, the smaller barracuda, they don't quite have it's like catching a pickerel. They don't have the flanks to put a good fight. But boy, that guy, he just about spooled me. I think I got all the way down to the knot.
Wow.
Before I got him in.
Cool.
That was a snook caught at the same spot, and unfortunately, this photograph precedes selfies where you could kind of get yourself into the picture. So back in the day of film cameras, if you were fishing by yourself or your buddy was 200 yards down the beach, you had to lay the fish down and just take a picture of it. I used to smoke back then, so I put my pack of Marlboro in there for scale. I think that was a 28-inch snook, which isn't huge, but it was a good size one.
That is like so Boston North Shore of you, using a pack of Marlboros for scale.
Yeah.
Which you just made me think of that scene in Jaws right now where Hooper's telling Chief Brody, go out into the pulpit. Why? I need to get you in the foreground for scale.
For scale,
At least he used a pack of Marlboros.
I think I threw a coconut in there too, but
is that what that is?
That's a coconut. I think that's propping up the rod, so I didn't lay the reel in the sand.
I'm beginning to think between the coconut and the pack of Marlboros, is this like some weird metaphor or like symbolic gesture that like you're trying to signal out here for something?
I'm sure we could come up with something. So this was actually just taken last summer. It was a great day. Steve Malatesta signed up for. They have a contest every year or an event where you take some veterans fishing, and he asked me to be his mate, and we took a couple of veterans out. Both guys had never fished before, and it was one of those days we tried spot after spot. We were really hoping to get them into some fish. Probably fished 4 hours, nothing, not a hit. It was looking really bleak. And then suddenly the last spot, which was over by Seal Point, we saw some boats over there, went over, and kaboom. I think we took maybe a dozen fish between 36 and 32 inches, somewhere in that size in the next hour. And boy, were these guys thrilled. They were so happy. It was just such a wonderful thing. I can't wait to do it again.
See, what's funny is like we would look at a dozen fish between 32 and 36 inches as like an average to good day. I would say average to good. Okay, looking at the number as well as the size of those fish, which those are respectable fish, right? But for these guys that have never been out there, I mean, that's like that's like some real serious excitement
when
something like that.
When you're a fisherman and you have the ability to go all the time.
That's
you remember the days that are good, and in your mind, every day is like that. But it's different than when you tell somebody about it, and I'm going to take you out on my boat. That's when the fish seem to disappear. So when you have the ability to take somebody out and actually find the fish, those two things align. It's a special.
So the past couple of years, just the way the timing has worked out, I haven't had an opportunity to get out there and do that. But I'm going to make that a priority this year to make sure that I get in on that action with that veterans tournament. Wasn't able to last season and seasons prior to that.
It's well worth it. Just if you're going to the cookout afterwards, get there early because those hamburgers go fast.
So I've been told.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good stuff. So George, you had a couple pictures here too. So we'll shift back over to you. Run us through a couple of different things over here.
Nice cod.
That's a beautiful cod. That was many years ago. We're probably going back 25 years maybe.
Is that one of the party boats out of Rye Harbor?
No, that's the one out of Lynn.
Oh, what's
the American Classic.
Yeah, that's right, the American Classic.
Yep,
Okay.
that was his first trip of the year, which was the last weekend in February.
Whoa. I bet that was cold.
Yeah.
Well, if you notice, I got a
Where were you
nice.
fishing? Miami, I hope.
If you notice, I got a winter coveralls on, and long johns, the whole thing. But
you go overboard with that, you're done.
But we would go out on his first maiden voyage every season, and fortunately, that one caught won the pool. At that time, the pool was like $50, but
there's probably some reasonable money in those days.
When we went out that day, just real quick.
Yep.
The skipper says we have a window because there's a storm coming up, but we should be okay. So we went, and I'm not sure exactly where we went, but he finally called it quits when the snowstorm came in. We were out in there in the snowstorm, came back in the snowstorm.
Okay.
But with that fish.
Gotcha. George, tell you what, I'm going to hold right there real quickly. So apparently Mike's agent just chimed in over here. So we only had Mike for 40 minutes due to contractual disputes.
That's my mom, actually.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to get Mikey wrapped up here in the next couple minutes. But we're gonna come back to the George action here in a minute, and then we'll talk about a few more different things. But Mike, what's going on this particular season? If you're willing to talk about it. Strategies for the upcoming season in the Striper Bowl. Who do you think your fiercest competitor is going to be? Everyone says that it's always going to be them. So notwithstanding you, who do you think your toughest competition is going to be? Who are the front runners, the highliners you're watching, and what are you going to do to put yourself in number one?
I would say, first off, they're all good fishermen. There's not a person in this tournament that isn't a candidate for winning a category. But one of the biggest keys to catching fish is just putting your time in. So you got to look towards the guys that spend the most amount of time on the water. And unfortunately, that's just about everybody. George here, is out a lot. Bobby Laspinato is out a lot. Kirk Weatherby is out a lot. Steve is out a lot. Mm-hmm. Those are some of the guys, I think, just because they put an awful lot of time in. Joe Laval tends to catch a lot of big bluefish.
He does.
He does. I think he likes to fish in the spots that the bluefish like to hang out in.
He would have won the tournament in 23. He missed the window by 2 days? I think he got a fish that would have taken the first spot 2 days after the tournament ended last year.
Yeah. So I think any of those guys, but really anybody who's in the tournament could win this thing.
See, I agree with you on that one. I think that this tournament, the way that it's structured, okay, it's just basically the biggest striped bass and the biggest bluefish by weight. Anybody's got a shot to win this thing at any given moment. All it takes is one day, one trip, one hookup, right, and you can be dead last in the standings, all 16, 17 weeks of the season and skyrocket to number one.
And you know what, Anthony? When I won for biggest bluefish, I think it was 2 years ago.
Yep.
It was the last bluefish I caught that year. And it was the end of the day, and I was wrapping up fishing, and I was heading for the barn, and thought, what the hell, I might as well toss out a plug and just drag it behind my boat while I'm on the way in.
And this is what I'm talking about. It's better to be lucky than good, right?
Yes.
And it's not always the best fisherman who wins. See, that just by happenstance he won this thing. Finish up the story.
So that's it. As far as who could win, I think it's wide open. I know one thing that I would like to try this year. So I'm sure when you were interviewing earlier with Steve and Jason, they talked about some of these crazy days out there where there were big schools of bluefish, and then tuna showed up in the mix, even some minke whales. I don't know if they mentioned those. So I think I'm certainly hoping for a repeat this year where we have some tuna in close, and making sure that I have gear rigged for tuna to take advantage of it, because last year, frankly, I wasn't. So I think that's, for me, the watchword for this year is be ready for anything.
All right. So then there were two of us after Quigley exited. So, George, getting back down to it here. Next in the series of photos that you have, what are we looking at?
Well, this is my father. Him and I had been out flounder fishing. So now we're back at his house, and he's filleting the flounder. And one of the reasons he fillets in his yard is he takes the remains and buries it in his vegetable garden.
Yep.
And the neighbors could never understand how his vegetables were just off the charts. But this is when we'd go out in his 14-foot aluminum boat with a little 5-horsepower motor out here in Lynn Harbor and off the Point of Pines, and just reap in all these fish.
That's cool to see, like that, going back to that era of time. You know, you hear people talk about it. You know, in the last episode, we talked a little bit about, I showed a clip about how people talked about what it was like in the old days, how you used to fill the boat up with cod and haddock and flounder, and, you know, and they used to fill buckets up, and there you go. You can see they got the buckets right there. So, yeah, that's a healthy amount of flounder right there, to say the least. What do we got on this one, George?
Well, this is, well, we must have been in one of the tournaments because I'm weighing it. And that's probably like a 12-pound, 13-pound striper, I'm quite sure. And we're in my boat. That's the trophy. So that's, you know, a couple of years ago. Didn't win anything, but we have a good time catching it.
It's always a good time catching them.
Always a good time.
It's a respectable fish right there. Oh, here we go. Some flounder action right there.
Well, that was probably 2 years ago, right off of Sail Harbor. And we were striper fishing, and we're in shallow water, and that's a summer flounder, a fluke, and that was like a 24-inch fish.
That's a doormat right there. Look at that thing.
That was amazing. We couldn't believe it.
Like I said, the flounder fishing's got a ways to go to come back, but I think it's starting to inch its momentum back.
Well, you know, I hope so, but in the last few years, I've probably only caught 2.
I mean, have you really been out there targeting them specifically? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Sorry. Okay. All right.
Got a long ways to go.
It definitely has a ways to go. I agree with you. But you know, every now and again, I feel like I'm starting to hear more people catch flounder than what I used to hear about. So that's a good sign. Seeing something like this, it's a good healthy fish right there. That's a definite doormat one right there. But I think it's got a ways to go. That I agree with you on.
Yeah, there's another striper. Probably that looks like a good size striper. That was on my friend's boat. Probably off of Nahant a couple of years ago. That would have been 2 years ago. And this is a good one. Last year we were in the Knights of Columbus tournament over in Nahant, and in the morning we started off trolling the 9er rig down into Lynn Harbor, right from the river here, and down by near where the gas company is. We got a triple hit.
So you got 2 out of 3 anyway.
Yeah. No, there was
the third.
We must have taken the third one off.
Oh, okay. So you did. You got all 3. Okay.
We got all 3. That was incredible. We were
so far the best I've done is 2.
Yeah. So and we stayed in that area. You had talked about how they're there and then they're gone. We stayed in that area for a while and we didn't even mark one fish. You know,
funny how that one works.
They came through with a vengeance and they left just as fast as they came.
And there he is. He's sporting the suspenders, folks.
Oh, yeah.
The Gordon Gecko.
Well, I wear them all the time. I got them on now.
Legend has it, if you come by and you snap the suspenders, it's good luck. So now I'm going to have everyone trying to snap your suspenders this season.
I'll make sure that happens every time I come down. But that's a good size fish.
That's a good fish right there. That's probably about a good 39, 40 incher right there.
Yep.
That thing's probably mid-20s easily.
That could have been the one I entered in the tournament for the Knights of Columbus. That would have been 39 inches.
Okay.
In their tournament, they didn't go by weight; they just go by length.
Oh, go by length. Okay. Well, it makes sense. Yeah, 'cause if you have the slot limit and all that, they go by length, measure it, and throw it back in. Okay, I got you. There's another pair of suspenders too. Look at that. He's got different ones that he's sporting out there.
Oh, yeah.
Do you find the fishing's more productive if you're in black suspenders versus green or red?
Well, I've got a pair of suspenders that have fish on them.
Okay.
And those are the lucky ones. Those
All
are
right.
the ones that produce most fish, but it doesn't always go with my outfit. Yeah, and there we are
Rocking
again.
the flannel today.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that must have been a cool morning off in the hunt. That was a good sized fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is. And it can be a little cool out there in the morning
Yes,
sometimes.
yeah.
And then once that sun comes up a few degrees above the horizon, warms up.
You know it's in the fall when you see that I've got the flannel shirt
yeah.
on. And that was another nice stripe. A little on the thin side, but
Yeah, this one here,
that could have been early in the season. I caught a couple way back when, 48, 49, 50-inch,
Wow.
and right off in the hunt, right between the hunt and the flip rock. And that was one of them right there. And if you notice down by my feet, there's a couple more.
Yeah, okay.
on the deck.
Now that you pointed that out, yeah.
Yeah.
That looks like it was a pretty good day of fishing.
Yeah, and that was
To
back
say-
in the day when you could keep more than one. And they had to be like bigger than 35 or 36 inches, I think, back then.
Yeah.
There was no slot, it just had to be.
Yeah, the slot thing's past couple seasons, but other than that, it was. How was that? You know what? I can't remember what it was before that, but yeah, the slots are relatively.
Well, it had started
new
out
thing.
like at 36, 38 inches, and then every
It's changed.
couple of years
Yeah.
it would come down as the.
Yeah, I remember when
stock
36 to 34 to
Yeah.
32 to 28.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bounced around since the 90s. I remember that. So cool. Those are some great pitches that you had. Thanks for bringing those in. So anyway, George, let's talk a little bit about the upcoming season right here. So I know that you've been gearing up for it. You've got some real enthusiasm to get out there this year. And
Yeah.
like I like to wind down these podcasts over here, who do you think aside from yourself, who do you foresee as big competition to be potential highliners in this year's fleet?
Well, like Steve says, everybody has the opportunity to be the big winners. But, I look at like Bob Losmanado. He seems to have a knack out there. He gets out very early in the morning.
Oh, he does.
Well,
Sometimes I wonder if he's out there at night.
Yeah, while I'm still in Neverland at home. And the first thing I'll do, and I know he's out before me, is I give him a call, find out where the hot spots are, if there is any. But yeah, everybody has a good chance. And Kirk's another one that can seem to land on the fish. He seems to do a pretty good job. But, just like what Mike says, everybody's got a shot.
So I tried to get Kirk on the podcast. I don't know that it's impossible that he may not be on this season, but he's like very very secretive over there. He's like kind of like Bill Belichick. Doesn't want to tell you too much.
Exactly. Gives you just enough. It was just like years ago. We had a member down here, an excellent fisherman. Him and his wife, they'd always come back in with some nice fish, and I'd say, "Geez, where'd you get those?" And the only thing he'd say, "Out there." So one day, it was my turn. I came in, had some pretty good fish, and he happened to be down. "George, where'd you get those?" Out there.
Isn't it like so like rewarding just to be able to say that, just to like give it back to him in a nice little subtle.
I always like to share.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
We're in it for sport. We're
That's
in it
right.
for fun.
For competition, friendly competition.
Friendly competition, and I'll always tell people.
And here's the thing, in the realm of friendly competition like that, let's go back to what we said. These fish move around. Mm-hmm. Just because they were in that spot 4 hours ago when you caught them, it is very unlikely that they're going to be there. And, in that particular case, and then add an hour of transit time for that guy to get out there 5 hours later in a different phase of the tide after things have moved around. So I kind of feel like, and I get it, people, they don't want to give away tradecraft. They don't want to give away secrets. I do understand that aspect of it. To me, I think it makes you look a little bit more heroic in the sense that you're like, yeah, sure, I'll tell you right where they were, And then when the people get out there and they don't catch anything because the fish aren't there, it makes you look that much more credible because you caught something, and then you can always fall back. I told you right where they were. I told you. Did I not tell you? I kind of get what you're saying again, and I understand with some people. It's there's two different takes on that. There's the crowd of people that don't like to say anything. I get it, and there's a crowd of people that'll tell you, they'll give you, and it just goes back to what we said. These fish move around, so even when you kind of don't know. Some of my best fish you just find by accident. You just find them just by happenstance. Like I've had situations where, I've had to stop the boat for something because I thought I ran over a lobster pot or something. I look up at the machine and whoa, there's a big school of fish. Good thing I stopped right here by pure accident. I've had that happen before too. And, I think Kirk is definitely someone who's going to be a contender. He was the first one to win the Striper Bowl. He won the Chief Brody Trophy in 22, first year we had the tournament. Yeah. And him and Danny are definitely a force to be reckoned with out there. Those two, when you put them together, they are very competitive. Lost Bow, I got to tell you, go back to what we said there, very good fisherman. The key with Lost Bow, I think, is can the boat stay healthy during the season?
Yes.
That's the thing. It's kind of like in football, hey, can the team stay healthy and make a run to the postseason? Can Lost Bow's boat not break down on him? I've said to him before, you got the boat. Why don't you go up to Stellwagen? He says, why? Because I don't want to have a 2-day trip being towed back by sea tow. That's why. At least if I break down off the beach, somebody can drag me in an hour. All right, but I mean, his boat is holding its own. It's doing well, but it just always seems to be something that happens. There always seems to be some maintenance issue that puts him down for a couple of days. And, I think that potentially is something I think that's held him back. I'm surprised he hasn't won at least one of these tournaments so far. But he's a front runner. I think he could be up there for sure.
Definitely.
He is. And, like we've said, too, I mean, the way this tournament works is anybody could really win this thing. If you're in the right place, the right time, you got a good shot for sure. And that's the thing that really makes this tournament competitive. Wrapping it up on strategy for the coming seasons. So we talked a little bit about who you perceive to be some of the contenders aside from yourself. What are you thinking in terms of strategy? Are you going to do anything different this year? Are you going to try to get out there earlier? Are you going to try different techniques? Are you going to try some different approaches, fish different times, different areas? What are you thinking for the season?
Well, this year, pretty much, I'm not changing up a lot. One of the things I like to do right off the bat, the first 3 or 4 times out, is go bottom fishing for flounder. Maybe get out there for some haddock, while the water's cold enough.
Sure.
That's what I'll do first. And then after that, then as I listening to everybody, when the stripers start coming in, then we'll switch over and try the stripers. And probably, I might try. I never like going out when it's dark. But this year, I might push it a little bit and get out there
in the morning, you're saying?
Real early in the morning, you know, and give that a shot, because that sometimes seems to produce a little more.
It does. Bobby's strategy, he gets out there early. He's leaving I don't think he's trying to leave when it's dark out per se, but that's just how it works out. So he's basically motoring out just as the sun's about to break the horizon. So by the time he gets to his first spot, you're in the low light conditions, and now he's trying to source the bait right at that particular time. So I think getting out there right at first light does pay you some dividends, because you find the bait and then you find the fish when they're still active in those low light conditions. So that does work. There were a bunch of times last year, and trying to do the same exact thing, I thought, I'm going to be the first one out. How cool is this? It's, I can't even say it. I'm down there, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to cast lines, and then Bobby's zipping right by me, and I'm just saying, shit, I thought I was going to be the first one to leave today. But, getting out there early does work, and, maybe even try the night bite a little bit, too. Try it in close. I think that might be something to look at. Don't venture way out. Try the night bite right out front. The night bite just off the beach and right out here at the bend can work sometimes.
I've done very well in close. Right off the beach, right off of Seal Harbor, off Nahant, right up close to the rocks. So it's just same old strategy, same old routine. If they're there, you're going to get them.
I mean, Kelly's Rocks, for example, great spot. I find a lot of small fish there, but there's a big fish or two that are in there. But I remember back in the 90s, the late 90s in particular, man, that spot was just producing cow after cow back in the day. And there are still some spots in close where you can find those big fish consistently. There's a few spots that are just basically in the shadow of where we're sitting, probably about a 2 to 3 mile radius, and even less than that you can find some pretty big fish. Even I remember many years ago, you could find big fish right in the river early in the season.
That's right.
Yep. So, there's definitely some spots out there. Well, anyway, George, I think this was great to have you on. We covered a lot of good ground here today, and I know that you're going to be fighting hard, making a run at it to be the top boat out there. So I'll be looking forward to some good-spirited competition with you. And it was great to have you on. I wish you...
That was nice being here. Thank you.
Wish you a great season to come.
Yeah, you too.
All right. You got it. Thanks, George.